If that actually came through, guys, that's George Benson, Everything Must Change. I don't just listen to country, all right? I'm not that one-sided. But, okay, you know what? This is take 2. I actually ran out this 512 gigabyte card or whatever. Plowed right through it. Didn't realize it. I just had a shot of this, but, and it was a healthy one. we just pour a little guy here. And, yeah, well, okay, there. Show off my wonderful new Gettysburg shot glass again for you. Look at that. Oh, who's cool? Who's cool? Just kidding. And of course, I got my yummy coffee drink from Bantam. So I want to read a little more from about the citizen aspect of the Civil War and the Battle of Gettysburg in particular. Before I do, last time, I don't know if it's okay. If you remember in one of these little read-alongs, and I told you I was going to show the book I was reading from, and I forgot to. This is the book. Okay, it's Prelude to Gettysburg, the encounter at Hanover, and there's no author given. It's just credited to the Historical Publication Committee of the Hanover Chamber of Commerce, and it was written in 1963. I looked it up online, so I picked this up at the Gettysburg Library at their little book sale thingamabob. But you can order it online, so it's not rare. So on page 27, here we go, and I'm going to kind of read backwards, skip backwards, because the book is written in kind of funny order. Citizens prepared defense. During the early summer of 1863, all was excitement and turmoil on the Pennsylvania border. The alarm was sounded. The rebels are coming. Almost every day, an unending stream of hurrying refugees filled all the roads leading northward. Horses and cattle, store goods, and valuables were hidden away or hurried for safety from the spoiler to points in the happy land behind the Susquehanna. The news of Milroy's defeat, of Lee's advance, and of the crossing of the Potomac by his army followed in quick succession, and the formidable proportions of the invasion caused increasing dread and apprehension. Dread and apprehension. That Lee intended to transfer the war with all its horror from Virginia into Pennsylvania was certain, and the records of 2 years past made everyone familiar with the woes they might expect to come. Rumors of all kinds of battles, of burnings, of robberies, and other outrages rendered the people restless and fearful, and only those with the strongest nerves could get sound sleep at night. No man knew what the next day would bring forth. When Pennsylvania, Governor Curtin discovered that the enemy intended to invade Pennsylvania, he ordered the people in the southern tier of counties to remove their horses, cattle, and valuable effects east of the Susquehanna for safety and protection. For several long days, trains of wagons loaded with household furniture, as well as women and children, passed down the turnpikes and other public roads to ferries and bridges across the Susquehanna. All the banks removed their money deposits and valuable documents to the cities of Philadelphia and New York. In the yard or garden and adjoining orchard of many of the farms and homes throughout the entire area of York and Adams County, household treasures were buried in the presence of different members of the family in order that they might afterward be recovered by any one of them. I'm going to skip back to page 21. Getting back to Union Mills, which I've covered a bit, and I'll try to remember to link one of my videos there. In the center of Meade's defense line was a little manorial community named for a brick grist mill built in 1797 by two Shriver brothers. By the way, I believe that they are not the same Shrivers of Gettysburg, the Shriver house on Baltimore Street, but I could be wrong. Their homestead was located where the Westminster Road divided into two forks. In 1863, the Shriver family living in the original homestead were Union sympathizers with the son in the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment. That's an interesting story, fun story. But other members of the family had built a mansion across the road and were Southern sympathizers, with 4 boys in the Confederate Army. 4 boys. The former family owned slaves, but the latter did not. Just to reiterate, the Union sympathizers owned slaves, and the Confederate sympathizers in the Shriver family of Union Mills did not own slaves, just to be clear. Breezing past a couple things, that Shriver family in Union Mills, the Shrivers of Union Mills, entertained Jeb Lee when he passed through, and then, about a day later, they entertained Union troops as well. And they were quite accommodating to both. It should kind of go without saying. First of all, we've got a family with split loyalties, so there you have it right there, right? And of course, second of all, not many people are going to say no to a standing army carrying a bunch of guns and stuff on the warpath. And then skipping ahead a little bit more to page 23, according to Robert Fowler, editor of the Civil War Times, the William Shriver family, living on the west side of the Westminster Littletown Highway running through Union Mills, had 4 sons in the Confederate service when Jeb Stuart stopped at their home for breakfast the morning of June 30th, 1863, which brings us right up to the war. So I just kind of thought these were interesting passages. I always like to reiterate the fact that civilians were absolutely affected during this war. I mean, wherever the war came, the civilians in the surrounding towns and farms were absolutely, of course, negatively affected. And I like to point these things out because, most popular YouTube videos, of course, don't focus on this. And again, tip my hat to the Adams County Historical Society and their Beyond the Battle Museum, which you should definitely stop by and visit when you're in Gettysburg. I mean, that's a must-see, must-stop. So much attention, of course, when it comes to the Battle of Gettysburg and the Civil War in general is always lauded upon the heroic generals and the intense battles and the minutiae of war and so on and so forth and all the nerdism that goes to and all that. And again, I appreciate that stuff, and I'm kind of a fan of that stuff as well. But I also, on the other hand, wish that the civilian experience was discussed much more often, because then maybe people wouldn't glorify war so much. I also think the dual loyalties of the Shriver family, the Shrivers of Union Mills and not Gettysburg, we've heard stories that like this before, like say with the Culp brothers, right, of Gettysburg. But it wasn't just the state of Maryland, being right on the Mason-Dixon, that had a lot of divided loyalties. So did Pennsylvania. Not every single person in the state of Pennsylvania was pro-Union. It probably had a higher proportion of Union sympathizers. I mean, Maryland really was split. I mean, split like kind of right down the middle, so to speak. You could almost draw a certain kind of line and delineate which side people sat on the fence of, although it doesn't go kind of east to west. It doesn't kind of bisect Maryland. And it's like some people might think, and like I kind of used to think, it doesn't quite really run along a neat little line, say from Washington to Baltimore, like kind of in that direction, right? Southern Maryland kind of seems obvious, but more specifically, the Chesapeake area, the Chesapeake Bay area, was the really the southern strongholds and had the most sympathizers and just hordes of people, of Marylanders from the Chesapeake area particularly, were the ones that defected into Virginia and joined the Confederacy, because again, most of the slave labor in the state of Maryland didn't center around cotton, but it centered around the growth of tobacco, which was primarily around the Chesapeake Bay. Anyways, I'm up to 9 minutes, and I just think these are fascinating stories, guys. I mean, it's kind of my thing. Again, the civilian experience is I think really worth researching and learning about and retelling, because war is never a good thing, despite which side of the fence you sit on. It always brings horror and death and misery, and then afterwards disease. Here in Gettysburg, after the war had come and gone, after all the troops had left, many people in Gettysburg still died ugly deaths due to the disease that was brought by the soldiers, by the hordes of soldiers, urinating in the creeks and so on and so forth. It's just an ugly affair. It sounds far-fetched, but let's pray it never happens again. on this soil, or really anywhere in the world, because it's just a very, very grim thing to have to deal with, and we should never allow ourselves to be divided to the point by the powers on high, to the point that we get to another civil war. So I'm out of time, guys. I will see you later on the next one.